My name's Amit. I'm a psychiatrist by background. My special interest has always been in exercise, and also a lot of background in sport as well, like many of you in this room. As part of my training, one of my big passions was bringing exercise into mental health services. So last year we published an accredited module for the Royal College of Psychiatrists on exercise, and it became the second most downloaded module within the Royal College. So there is a real appetite for exercise even within psychiatrists and in mental health services, because we know that can have such a beneficial effect for our patients. And also just last week I'm now part of the Mind charity, and we're looking at how to embed physical activity for anybody who's had a lived experience of mental illness. So that's something that I'm really passionate about. So this is a global trend snapshot, so it was taken a few years ago. As you can see, the male trends are at the top and female trends at the bottom. Can anybody kind of spot the major trends here? So if we look at the darker colours being physical inactivity, can anybody shout out some of the trends that they're seeing? Phil, if you want to tell us what you're seeing?
We're not doing very well where we are.
Yeah. So we know that in westernised societies we are becoming more sedentary compared to what we were say in the 1960s. We know that females are more likely to be sedentary compared to males. And when I look at this graph, I think of, well, how did I get here today? So when I got on the tube, I got the escalator down, I got the escalator up. There's an option of getting a bus here. When I go to work this afternoon, I'll be doing a ward round. That's 2.5 hours of sitting down. I'll have another meeting where I'm sitting down. I'll do some paperwork. We're sitting down. So our lifestyles are being designed so we're no longer doing the things that are really important for us. And I think we've got to be really conscious of that. And one thing that I think Public Health England have got it spot on is when they recently gave their guidelines, they're no longer talking about exercise being this thing where you have to go to the gym, don some lycra and do some weights. It's about our own lifestyles. How can we embed that into our daily habits? When I saw this, I thought about myself, and sometimes when I go to the gym, I was driving to the gym. And I was like, that makes no sense. Why am I driving to the gym to do exercise? So it just shows that we're all fallible. There's lots of things we can do ourselves to improve our physical activities. That could be going shopping and carrying your bags and getting off 2 stops earlier on the bus and walking home. So there's lots of things we can do. So what Public Health England recommends is 150 minutes of physical activity a week. So if we break that down, that's 30 minutes 5 times a week. And that's moderate physical activity. So getting slightly out of breath, so it could be brisk walking or light jogging. And also, they also recommend 75 minutes of vigorous activity. So that might be going to the gym or kind of running where you're not able to have a conversation. So you can mix the two up. So working in psychiatry, we follow the Biopsychosocial model. Is that something that people have heard of before? No. Okay. So we can run through that. So we think of biology. So that's more the hormones that we produce. So neurohormones, hormones in our brains. We can think about the psychological perspective. So like Phil was alluding to, think about thinking patterns, and also socially, how do we interact with people. So the evidence base for exercise and biology is really strong now. So 5-10 years ago, people were saying, yeah, there's some evidence, and now it's robust and it's been proven. So we have something called neuroplasticity in our brains. So what that basically means is the connections within our brains, and we call that plasticity. And we know that through exercise, we get more plasticity in our frontal lobes. So that comes to executive thinking, learning, and also our temporal lobes, so the hippocampi, which are very important structures for our memory. So we know that through exercise, we can increase the connections within these areas. So it's really important. From a psychological perspective, we know that exercise is a great distraction technique. So if you're feeling stressed and you're having a busy day and you need to just get out, we know exercise is really important. There's a concept called stress buffering. So by exercising, you're stimulating the sympathetic nervous system, so that kind of adrenaline that we were talking about before. And we know that if you're going through those motions and then you're then in anxiety-provoking situations, you can handle that a lot better. And also from a social point of view, so going to exercise in groups, we know that's also beneficial, and that can have more of an effect as well. So on this slide, I've condensed 20 years worth of research. So it's really, really basic. So in 2015, there was a big study come out. It's called a meta-analysis, where they group lots of studies together. So they pull them all together and they say, let's look at all these studies and what does that show? And essentially what it showed is that exercise is a robust antidepressant. It's been proven now. You can take medication, you can have psychotherapy, but exercise can work just as well. We have to respect that sometimes people can be really unwell with depression and exercise isn't a amenable option, and that's fine. But I think it's really important that we get that message that there are lots of things we can do ourselves to help us along the way, be that for prevention of disease or to treat disease. One thing that I find really interesting as well is our own biases. I have a personal bias because I've always been invested in exercise and I've always enjoyed it. So when I think about professionals, how do they communicate that to patients? And I did a study recently with Public Health England, looking at the sport, leisure and fitness industry. And what we found, we assessed 820 professionals, and when we asked them their knowledge on guidelines when it comes to physical activity, 50% didn't know them. And that's across the board if we look at GPs, psychiatrists, medical professionals. So I guess my message is it's really important that we ourselves are empowered and know the guidelines ourselves, because it can be quite dependent on the clinician that you meet in hospital or in your outpatient clinic. I think we've discussed some of these already, but we know that just 10 minutes of physical activity can boost our mood and energize us. Julian spoke before about, from the financial perspective, working as an employer, so the importance of exercise when it comes to sickness rates and also stress levels in the workplace. And what we know as well is that people that are highly educated or on higher salaries tend to exercise more. And is that because they've got more awareness? Do they have more time? So these are things that, it's interesting when we look at the trends. And also from a psychosocial point of view, when I was talking about that diagram before, we know the importance of exercise from the psychological point of view as a distraction technique, and also from a self-esteem point of view, whether you're exercising with family or with friends. But don't take my word for it, take his. So thinking of one of the famous Buddha quotes is, to keep the body in good health is a duty, otherwise we shall not be able to keep our minds strong and clear. More about cognition, so more about memory. So what we've seen is that people, as they age, there's a higher risk of dementia. There's a really nice study that was done at UCL a couple of years ago, which looked at, well, what can we modify? What can we do to prevent this from happening? And four of the most important things, number one was exercise, number one was managing stress, alcohol and smoking. So there are lots of things we can do to protect ourselves from acquiring, be it physical health conditions or mental health conditions. So just some general tips. So what we know is that you've got to have autonomy in these decisions. You've got to choose what you like doing. You can't do what everybody else is doing. Pick what you enjoy. Do it at your own pace. So do what you're comfortable with. We know that if you're doing something set that you don't enjoy, you will drop out. We know that it's important to do it outdoors if you can. There's enhanced effects being in the outdoors, whether that's swimming, whether that's running in the outdoors. Try and do it in a group, again, because we know that can be more effective, and also have fun along the way. Just a final thing that I just want to mention as well is that we have to keep this in perspective as well, because sometimes people can go overboard with exercise. And working in eating disorders, I see a lot of this as well. So good exercise, if we do it in moderation, and I was talking about this 150 minutes a week, it can be good for our moods, it can help with performance in the work setting. But also as a negative, we know that when people acquire difficulties with their eating, we know that it goes hand in hand with compulsive exercise. So that's when you're exercising and you're following this really rigid, regimented regime that you no longer enjoy, where you're training because even though you're injured and you feel guilty if you don't exercise, and you're eating food, so you're exercising to justify eating food. These are not healthy habits, and that's something that we've got to be mindful of. We're seeing more of this, and this is what we call orthorexia, this obsession with healthy eating, this obsession with exercising and going overboard. So always keep things in perspective. The final thing I'd like to add as well is just being mindful of social media. So just by show of hands, who's on Instagram? So like most of us in the room. So we know that Instagram is, it's a very visually based platform, and it's very easy to follow lots of people on there. And we know that, again, studies have shown that people can get issues with their own self-esteem. They can get body issues because they're following all these people who are doing things which are not really natural. So I guess from that point of view as well, just be really mindful that you've got to do things on your terms. Don't compare yourself to others. Just enjoy what you're doing. So just in summary, really, exercise is a established antidepressant, and if we think about the wellbeing spectrum, so it can be helpful for wellbeing, going all the way to severe depression as well. We also have to think about being empowered. So how do I learn about these guidelines myself, and how do I embed them into my own practice? So thank you for having me today, and best of luck.